Welcome, folks, to episode 115 of The Morgue, an official CorpseFeed podcast. And I am Arturo Padilla, the guy behind the face. And with me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. Howdy, Tex. What's up, man?
Oh man, howdy Arturo. It's been a while since we've done our last recording. We did take a break for those who've been keeping up with us every week. Thank you, thank you. And if not, if you're jumping in for the first time, just a little catch up. I actually saw Beavis and Butthead do the universe.
Nice.
I dig it. Like it's not much to talk about. That's what we won't be spending much time on it. But like it's if you know what you're getting into, you're good. Right, and that's pretty much it.
Is it better than Beavis and Butthead Do America?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because Do America is like very like I don't know. It's of its time.
Yeah,
and like
it was special. It was definitely something special.
Yeah.
So also, I know you saw Beavis and Butthead. I happened to see Lightyear with the family the other day. And you know what, Tex? It wasn't bad, but I wasn't really impressed 100%. What I can say though, it looked great. It looked great. They really did a great job with all the like space stuff, like the launch and the technology and the little bits and pieces of the rocket ship and how that all looks, dude. It looks great. But the story, dude, it could have been a little bit more captivating. The characters could have been a bit better. But overall, it's definitely a wait for it, like on our scale.
Right.
I don't know if it does anything to the legacy of the Toy Story stuff and the Lightyear stuff. My wife was asking, she was like, "Oh, I wonder if they're going to come out with like a Woody show, like the actual Woody's Roundup show now, or like a story for the Potato Heads or something." And I'm like, you know what? I'm good.
I mean, it sounds like you're good because like that sounds like something they'd consider, right? Like if not for movies, at least like a Disney Plus thing, like a Woody's Roundup or Mr. Potato Head show. But I don't know, man. Like after hearing what you said about Lightyear and what I've seen from the reviews elsewhere too, like I think it kind of sucks for Pixar, right? Like was their
It doesn't. Some people like it. Socks was awesome, the little kitty cat thing, right? But like it wasn't, like I said, it's no Toy Story. It's not like an evolution for Pixar how Incredibles was. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So moving on in terms of our new stuff from now on, moving forward, our coming attractions and stuff to look forward to. First, we have this trailer. We caught it in the. I remember catching it in the theater once.
The teaser, right? The teaser where she just walks by the room, right? That's all we saw there.
Of Smile.
Of Smile, yes. I'm not sure which studio is actually putting this one out. But it looks good in terms of quality and production wise, and creep factor. It looks good. But it does have that thing, that ability to kind of just shit the bed when it comes down to the end of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Especially in terms of the explanation of what's going on, right?
Yes. We've spoken off air about this. Like the trailer, it's hitting so well with people. Like it's going viral just from people on Twitter going, "Oh yeah, look at the last shot of this trailer," or whatever like that, right? Like it's built like. I'll admit too, it's a great trailer. It looks original. I don't know who the creative team behind it. Like, it's not even that kind of trailer. It's not saying, "Oh, from the director behind this, the producer of
a producer," like that other Barbarian trailer we saw.
Yes, exactly. Like it's not like that where it's like a producer from this movie. It's
half of the creative team of so and so horror movie, and then this one guy from that horror movie, and then finally this one that you didn't like either.
Yes. Exactly. Like, but now it's just the concept. It looks wicked, but you're right. As soon as they explain what the concept is, it's going downhill. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah. And then that last shot with the neck turning thing, that could be a dream for all we know. And then when we see it, it'd be like, oh, it's just a dream. It has zero to do with the actual fun, the actual smile
Yes.
factor of it all, right?
Yes, exactly.
But again, as I mentioned before, we saw some trailers off the air, you and I, that are theatrical. And just look like straight VOD stuff. But this one, at least in terms of quality and the way everything seems to be pushed and marketed, it looks like it has some budget behind it. I'm hoping they use it wisely, and we get something decent, right? Because listen, we get very few and far between really good horror flicks. We'll talk about one later on the show, but I'm crossing my fingers for this one because I haven't seen the concept before, and it's that concept, that concept explanation, that twist. For example, Tex and I always
our biggest
one,
one,
always love to refer to Lights Out because
Yeah.
Lights Out had the opportunity to be something solid, right?
Yeah,
it had
starts
pretty,
off. It starts off great.
Yeah, 2/3 of the movie was pretty decent, right? And then we get to the whole monster explanation. It's like, who is this person? What is going on? And then they explain it. We're like, oh my god, that's not what I wanted to see. You could have just kind of, completely skipped it and like not even bothered explaining it. So that's what I'm really concerned about. Especially when it comes to these horror movies now that have a gimmick to them, so it's not a straight up slasher. It's not some straight up demonic possession kind of thing. There's something going on there. And the explanation of that something is what really can make or break this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a curse or a ghost or dreams or whatever, right? So you're right. I guess we'll see what happens from there. Moving to the small screen now, we got our first trailer for our first full look, even though we've had commercials and all that stuff, of What We Do in the Shadows season 4.
Yes.
Now, we've talked about What We Do in the Shadows in the past, and season 3 was probably the best of them yet. Like I remember really loving season 3, and I'm excited for season 4 just off the trailer alone, man. It's already got some good jokes in it. Like I just can't wait to, like, it's one of those crews, right? Like it's just a crew of characters that you're like, yeah, I just can't wait to see more of them. Like, do things.
I wholeheartedly agree 100%, especially now with the addition of a baby Colin Robinson, or a toddler Colin Robinson, I should say. It's gonna make things a whole lot interesting because now these the crew has a baby to take care of. You know what I mean? And it's one of their own, so they're definitely they're definitely gonna have to do some really cool stuff this season when it comes to using this kid as part of this whole crazy show. And then you have Nandor looking for a wife still. You have Naja opening up a bar. Everything points to awesomeness this season. I can't wait to watch it. I'm very glad it got a 4th season. I'm glad a show like this is got traction and people love it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a very good point. Like the fact that it got more than 1 season at all is a big deal. And here we are, season 4, and honestly, this could go the Always Sunny route. Like it's that kind of crew where it's like, they're so good together. I'll just keep watching them for as long as they want to keep making it, right?
To your point, Tex, Always Sunny is in season 13 right now.
Yeah.
This one can work as well because they're freaking vampires. You know what I mean? They're around forever. So you can just kind of even do time jumps. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And you can even go back in time even and do a whole season of them a long time ago, which would be dope to see them in their own kind of environment, right?
I can't imagine how many things they'd be able to joke about that stuff.
This thing, as long as the writers want to keep writing it, I think it has a lot of traction behind it. It has a lot of legs. Because like I said, the whole vampire thing, you can take it anywhere. It's already a wild concept because they're vampires. So, and it's a comedy. So, sky's the limit. You know what I mean? Sky's the limit legit with this show. And I'm very excited for the whole project, honestly. I'm very glad it popped off.
Yeah, I mean, well, so let's talk about projects popping off, right?
Yes.
So moving towards the big small screen release in the last few weeks, Miss Marvel for Disney Plus.
Yes, now, I love
it. I mean, when we first started seeing trailers, I know you and I were like, "Oh, are we gonna watch it week to week? Are we even gonna touch on it? Should we wait till it's over to finally bring it up, but now seems like a good time to bring it up, right? Like
Yes.
we're 3 episodes in at
Yep.
this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We do remember our conversations. We were very skeptical about it. Also because Marvel didn't really show us a lot either.
Yeah.
And what they showed us seemed like a very CW kind of superhero show, right? Like a Stargirl kind of thing, right?
Yes.
But maybe a little like a little lesser in terms of quality when we first saw it, right? But now, like, you know, I'm a fan of Stargirl, and I can I have no problem putting this show in that tier at all. In fact, this show is a success for Marvel, in my opinion, because they knew how to reach a different audience. You know what I mean? A different aged audience altogether too, because it's a teen show, right?
Yes.
It's a teen show. Our protagonist, Kamala, she's what, 16, I think she is, right? 16 or 17 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Like
Yeah, so yeah, it's directed right towards that group of right towards that demographic, right? That preteen to that early teen, you know what I mean? And honestly, even for a Marvel fan, like myself, you know what I mean, in my 30s, this show is good. It's a quality show. If you are a fan of Marvel, and you are in it to win it, like we are here, we are gonna see the content, and then we will criticize it. We saw this content, and now it's time to kind of give it the praise it actually deserves. It does a very good job of writing a very cool family show, with a very brown cast. It's awesome.
Yes.
And it works. It looks good. The actress Kamala, I think this is her first ever gig, right? Her first acting gig.
Mon Villani, I believe that's her name.
Yes.
Yes, I have never seen her in anything before, and apparently she's a huge Marvel fan. And like, you know, kudos to her. And I believe what you're getting at here is what I'm going to jump into now, is that Marvel keeps finding these young talents,
Dude,
right? Like out of nowhere.
Dude, that casting department, or whoever's head of casting, like, needs huge pay bumps this year, especially with the introduction of just the young cast, especially the young women we see now.
Yeah, and not only that, like Miss Marvel as a whole has like a great cast already.
Yes.
Like just what you said with like her family, Kamala Khan's family is like great already. Like
yes,
it's just
100%.
From the jump, it's so natural feeling. Like it's just like, oh yeah, like we're literally just watching this family, you know. Yep. And like, and you know, then you get the rest of her extended universe of like the Illuminantes and like stuff like that. Like,
I love that.
Yeah, it's such a fun little thing.
I love
right?
that. Like, especially as a brown dude. I'm not of Indian descent or anything like that, but
right.
You know, Latin culture, you know, Latino culture.
Yes.
You know, it's the same. We have our little kind of our words for, you know, the elders and stuff like that. So this show really hits home because I don't think it's just a brown thing. I think this is just an overall human thing, especially when it comes to family. Like everyone has that crazy aunt or that crazy uncle, that awesome brother, the best friend who always, like, you know, comes through to everything. Like, it's a very human show. And that's, I think, what really stands out about this show, besides the cool Marvel factor of it all. You know, it's just the human stuff, right? Like the friendships, the relationships that these characters are forming, the bond between the parents and Kamala, like the bond between the parents themselves, like the mother and the father themselves, like their dynamic is great. The mother, I think she's, out of all the characters, I think she's a big standout in my opinion.
I think that's true.
Yeah,
like,
dude, she's awesome. She does a great job, man.
Sometimes even more than Kamala herself, and that's why I'm like, wow, like that's just part of the casting thing. It's like wherever you find these actors and actresses, like kudos, you know what I mean? Like it's just like you know, and it's also interesting for like the Marvel universe as a whole too. Like now we're getting you know, we're by episode 3 you're getting we're getting info on like her powers and where they come from. And so her bloodline is attached to. So now we're touching on other dimensions.
Yes.
Which is wild, right? So it's like,
yes,
we have the street level stuff, we have cosmic stuff, then we have the magical stuff, and now we're dealing with like dimensions.
Yes, so
and
now
not
we're dealing with
multiverse, right? Like it's
celestial stuff, right?
Yeah,
We
okay.
can go back to our Eternals episode, folks,
Yeah.
where we seriously just proclaimed the trashiness of that movie and the fact that it did a terrible job of broadening that Marvel side of the universe, right? Like, you were supposed to give us more info.
I
like
mean, look,
we've gotten more info on that stuff sprinkled all throughout the other shows that we have from the Eternals.
Dude, in Eternals, a giant hand comes out of the earth and gets like frozen, and
no one says a thing.
Yeah, we have yet to get any kind of acknowledgement in any of these other shows, like either in like a news report in the background or like something, or like an when
Listen, we'll see a Morbius reference before we see an Eternals reference.
Yeah, it's like the Scream 5 thing. Like, give us plot points in Easter eggs on like on the outside of the you know what I mean?
Oh my god, dude. But yes, back to the actual good you're good totally Marvel content.
Yeah.
We get into this whole celestial thing. Kamala's ancestors, her grandma, her great grandmother, and all that stuff, they were from this other dimension or something.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's
too.
wild.
Yeah,
it's getting wilder. I can't wait for them to explain some more, because they swerved me completely. I thought they were gonna be good, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, right? It was something about that woman that I didn't trust.
Yeah, so the big thing about her powers too, like, so in the comics, she's an Inhuman. She gets her powers from the Terrigen Mist, which is Terrigen, for those who who are listening at home, watching at home. It is it's connected to Black Bolt and his people.
Yes.
They even mentioned Terrigen in like Doctor Strange 2 for like a second. So, but in the comics, she gets her powers that way, and her powers are like completely different. She stretches. Miss Marvel stretches in the comics. That's actually her big deal. So for some whatever reason, maybe it's because Fantastic Four stuff or whatever, they took away her stretchy powers and they gave her these new light powers. So you see a little bit of it in the fact that like she stretches her hand out with like the purple light and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that, they've kept the essence technically of it, but her powers and her origin are like completely brand new for this.
Wow. But it's the same character, Kamala Khan, though, right?
Yes, it's the same. Like, for all intents and purposes, it's still Kamala Khan. It's still like the rest of the story comes from the comic, like Bruno, and then her little like, I forget. Is his name Bruno? Yeah, it is Bruno.
Yeah, Bruno.
Right?
Yeah, it's Bruno.
Yeah, another Bruno.
Another
Disney,
Bruno for Disney, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So her on and or her will they won't they with Bruno is the thing from the comic and stuff like that. Like her friend group and all this stuff. Like even some lines like good is not a thing you are, it's a thing you do. Like that's from Miss Marvel comics, but her powers, the Jinn origin stuff, like that's all completely brand new. And like I said, maybe they changed it for Mr. Fantastic. They didn't want like too stretchy people, but at the same time, it's like, well,
it makes sense.
They're adding all this dimension stuff, and like they're adding all these other layers. So it's like, well, now we got to see how she connects in Miss Marvel or in the Marvels or in the rest of the series too. So I don't know. What are you thinking? Like, how you feeling about it so far?
I'm digging the show. I'm curious to see where everything goes. I like the fact that things are going down without all that other Marvel interference, right? Like there's this little world thing, going down like in this part of Jersey, right?
Right.
And you don't hear, like, besides what Kamala talks about her fandom pretty much, but like you don't hear about like other heroic stuff in the back. How in Hawkeye, for instance, you had Hawkeye, so you couldn't get away from that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even with Kate Bishop. And this one, you don't have any other Marvel soups actually flying in yet that I know of, right?
That's true. Yeah, we still got a few episodes.
It's just a story of this girl who just gets powers, right? It's like a Spider-Man and Jace kind of thing, right?
Right.
And now it's evolving to the point where it's getting a little hairy, right? We left off at the end of this week's episode with her pretty much, having to ruin her brother's wedding reception because these people just started attacking her. So, shit's going down right now for Kamala.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they keep that severity level there. Like these other antagonists, like they're not messing around. Like they really want to just use her for her power pretty much.
It was immediate too.
Yes.
Like I think they were introduced in like episode 2, and then by episode 3 they're already moving in, like so you do appreciate that pace because it's like, okay, like let's get a move on and let's get this going.
And you appreciate that from bad guys too, right? It's like, wait a minute, why are we dancing around and doing a song and pony dance with this little girl? Let's just freaking make her do what we want. You know what I mean? And obviously these people are stacked with powers, like they're crazy, like strong. So like they're like, no, we're not gonna wait for her to come to us. Like, it's like, are you kidding me? You're letting her go to the wedding reception. We need her to go back to our dimension, so we're gonna make her do this. And then on top of that, you have what's it called?
Damage control.
Yes, the damage control people after her as well.
Which is interesting because that is the same detective who was like talking stuff to Peter in in No Way Home. So it's like, well, there we go. So damage control was already making their moves in Spider-Man, and now we're seeing it here. And it's likely we'll probably keep seeing them in the future as like with all these other street level heroes that start popping up.
Yeah, 100%. And this is again what Marvel does best. It's that world building, right? And sooner or later, we're gonna get Daredevil back in that fold, right? It seems like he lives in that same level as Kamala and as Kate Bishop, right? So we might see Daredevil be that street level kind of not leader, but just kind of that vet,
And speaking of, and She-Hulk,
that's right.
Her whole thing is that she's an attorney for these superpowered people. So so
Kamala might need her services, right, at some point.
I mean, look, you're right. It's building towards so it goes back to what we were saying before about like all the Marvel stuff, where it's like, even if you're not completely interested in it, which I understand, and I'm at the point where I'm like, do I want to watch these weekly or just wait till they build up and finish it all in one go, And but even if you're not like completely invested, there's still some very important pieces here. It's 100%. Still like there's still like some stuff that they're dropping here that it's like, well, we're probably going to need to know damage control. We're probably going to need to know about other dimensions. We're going to need to remember this in Captain Marvel 2.
Remember, we have to look at this as the MCU. Like everything Marvel does is to build that universe, every little layer, from the crazy celestial space stuff to like the low Daredevil, Kate Bishop, street level Kingpin stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Marvel is legit building their comic book world for, in live action form right in front of our eyes. And every story, no matter how little it is or how impactful it is part of that universe building. You know what I mean? And I think they're doing a great job. I love what they're doing, man. Like I'm watching this show weekly because I just want to know what's next, because like I want to see where Marvel is going with everything. We know that Kang is around the corner somewhere. You know what I mean?
I mean, and that's even it, because Feige, he came out, I forget where it was, but he was like around the end of the year or so, like towards the end of the year, we're gonna start seeing where Phase 4 is actually going. So like that's very interesting, because you're right. We have Black Panther, we have Thor.
We have Thor coming up next week, right? And then we have Black Panther in November. I saw a big poster for Wakanda Forever in theaters, and that got me excited. Meaning, hey, this is coming out this year finally.
Yeah. So
and if what Feige says is true, which he's like, as Tex mentioned, that he said in an article where in the next coming months you're going to see where this next phase is going. So I'm excited. And I'm going to be tuning in for the rest of Miss Marvel. I'm going to be tuning in for She-Hulk because, hey, it's on Disney Plus, folks.
Yeah,
you guys
why not?
can complain
Right?
all you want. Like,
what else are you doing?
Dude, and people are just complaining. Like, you know what? Just don't watch it. You know what I mean? Just don't watch it. You don't have to watch it. But then you're watching and then complaining about it, but you're still watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm very excited about it, Tex.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very exciting
Yes,
feature presentation for
a double feature to
right.
continue our double feature presentation summer. We have for you two very awesome, pieces of content. First, is Black Phone. Unfortunately, Tex couldn't go out
Yeah,
and see this one.
yeah.
But I had the absolute, fortunate ability to sit there and finally watch this thing. This thing has been promoted since 2021, I believe. I think it was supposed to come out in March of last year or something along those lines. But folks, I waited a while to see this one, and I was not disappointed in the least bit.
Wow. Okay.
Which, whew, let me just say that. And like, thank goodness I was not disappointed, because honestly, walking into theaters these days, especially when it comes to horror, folks, it's not a guarantee anymore. Definitely not a guarantee.
No, no.
We thought
You're
it was when it came to Halloween Kills, and then that just completely, like,
dude, it broke it broke
I'm,
our
I'm,
hearts,
I'm
man.
still broken. I'm still broken for that one.
Evil did no, evil didn't die that night, but in our
My heart
hearts,
did die tonight.
yeah, it was like, oh, like a part of us died that evening.
Yeah. But with Black Phone, I highly recommend seeing this, folks. It's a definite pay
Okay.
for it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. In our scale, it's a definite pay for it. It's an awesome movie theater kind of horror popcorn experience, right? So off the bat, I'm not really gonna go into spoiling anything since Tex hasn't seen it, and I really want him to see it.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
based off a short story written by Joe Hill. And from what I was told as well from some buddies on the feeds, that the story is awesome and the adaptation is even better. So I'm so glad this turned out the way it did, especially for Scott Derrickson, right? Who was in line to direct
Yes.
a Multiverse of Madness, but then there was some creative
Yeah,
differences, I guess,
creative
right?
differences
Yeah.
over the fact that, like, it's we don't know exactly why, but it's likely that, like, they promised him he could do something darker than what he was actually able to do, or like it's hard to tell because we got the Sam Raimi version, and you're like, wow, he got away with quite a
Yes.
bit. So it's like,
Which begs the question, Tex, right? Like,
what did yeah,
what was it that he wanted to do? Like, listen, like, one day, hopefully we can ask him that, right?
yeah, because like maybe he was dealing with like devils and stuff like that. Because
Oh,
like
dude,
I
I'm
can't.
very curious. I'm very curious, but I think he got his jollies out with this one.
Okay.
And to boot, folks, this one, it's a kid horror, right? I can put it in the same vein as it when it comes to kid horror.
Okay.
There's a lot of kid on kid violence. There's a lot of bully stuff going on, right? And they do it very well, so, too well sometimes. You're like, man, that's kind of it it kind of turns your stomach a little bit sometimes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, dude, it was very well done. And it was supposed to be well done because they were the driving force of this movie. Ethan Hawke was great, but he was such a subtle kind of terror that he was like a menacing mood. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
throughout the whole movie. You don't
Okay.
get yeah.
So I don't know if this is spoilers or not. So if it is, just avoid the question. But
Sure.
like, is he a real dude? Is that
Yes.
like, okay? So he's
Yes.
a real, okay?
Yes.
Because like the presentation in the trailers, it's like, oh, maybe he's a real dude. Maybe he's like
No,
a
he's very
monster
real.
dude. Okay.
No, he's
Okay.
very real. And the movie does a good job of going back to his past crimes and showing you how everything went down.
Oh,
Because
okay.
he's like a
Okay.
serial kidnapper, right? They call him the grabber. And he drives around this black van just kidnapping kids in daylight, which is wild and it's scary, especially me as a parent. Like, it's scary. If you go back to a lot of these crimes from the 70s and the 60s and stuff like that, these evil just men,
Yeah.
like,
The stranger danger shit.
yes,
Yeah.
dude, like, Derrickson did a great job of kind of getting that all
Mm,
through the screen, dude.
okay.
It was awesome. It did have its little faults, in my opinion. It felt a little long sometimes, but it was more for that character development,
Okay.
Um, there was a character in the movie, the kid's father. He was just a very annoying presence. But then again, like if you look at it on the other side of the coin, you're like, okay, I get it. That's why I didn't have many complaints. I'm being nitpicky, man. I'm legit being nitpicky when it comes to the complaints that I had,
Wow.
because I
Okay.
really couldn't find anything to kind of, pull out and be like, hey, what can I complain about, really? Because, dude, the story is just really good. The third act, I love the third act. I think you're gonna love the third act as well. I think all you folks out there, if you haven't seen it yet, it's worth it for the third act. You leave the theater satisfied. That's all I'm going to say about the third act. It's a very satisfying ending to this whole story, and you're in it to win it by that point.
Okay.
It's great to see the protagonist, for instance. I really enjoyed him because he was the kind of kid that his dad didn't allow him to see scary movies, right? Like his dad didn't let him watch like the rated R stuff or anything like that, because he's gonna get in trouble and all that stuff. So he's very innocent minded, right? And you need that here, because the world around him is so like just raw, right? That you need that this kid who hasn't been exposed to this evil yet to kind of get tossed into this evil and just kind of grow in front of the screen. And that was one of the best parts of the actual story. As I said before, there's a big cast of under 18 that really stole the show, dude. Legit. Even the bullies that were just there for a couple were just doing what bullies do, and just they know how to do their jobs. I remember, if you go back to the archives, I believe when we I think it was Conjuring. No, I'm sorry. Annabelle 3. With McKenna Grace, that we spoke about, young talent just elevating their skill this day and age. Because back in the day, like, you had your performances here and there, but now it's just like consistently these kids are just putting out quality material.
She was the best one in Malignant, and she was only in it for like, what was it, like 2 scenes, like just, oh boy, you're right. It's good to, and going back to the Miss Marvel conversation too, right? And a conversation we'll get into it a little bit. Like, it's good that there are these young talents already ready to go, because like we've said many times in the past, that don't fly anymore, man. You can't have bad kid actors anymore. That's not a. It's not allowed. It's just,
and especially in a story like this, Tex, where the kids are the emotional anchor to everything,
right?
Because like I said, Ethan Hawke is just a subtle terror, a mood, as I mentioned. That's what he really feels like, because he shows up every once in a while, drops some lines, goes away. Shows up, drops lines, goes away. You don't see him like in action for a hot minute on screen until the third act. But this is where the rest of the cast shines. This is where the rest of the cast is needed to support the rest of the story. Because it's not a slasher, because it's not like a bad guy driven movie. It's about this kid finding out how to survive based on the ghosts of the past victims that he's killed, which is, it builds this story where the kid gets pieces of information bit by bit from every ghost, and he has to piece it together to try and survive. It's really well done, dude. I can't wait for you to watch it. I'm glad, as you mentioned before off air, that I'm glad VOD now has a quick turnaround.
It won't be long before it's on
sooner or later, But that being said, folks, something that I know a lot of you folks have seen, and I know a lot of you guys out there got Disney Plus. And for our headliner in our double feature presentation for today's show is the one and only Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, I love it.
I mean, oh boy,
yes. Yes.
Yeah, right. Like, it's tough to even start the conversation, right? Because going into this, we've talked about this in our impressions when we first talked about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Star Wars isn't my big thing, and it never has been, probably never will be. I'll be honest, but like, something about Revenge of the Sith, and like it's people trash talk the prequels, but like, I grew up on those, and so did you. Like those are our Star Wars,
Yes,
those
but
are
I was one who did trash talk the prequels myself. I have
yeah,
admitted that myself here on the show.
and that's fine, and me, I was way into episode 1. I skipped part 2 and I came back for part 3. I was
I
like,
mean,
yeah.
that's acceptable because part 2 was trash, and the end of part 1, dude. I lived Duel of the Fates for about 2 years, maybe 2-3 years. That like I legit went back to the theater, just for Duel of the Fates. Honestly, like the best part of Phantom Menace, folks, is that last act where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan face Darth Maul, and then you see that double lightsaber shine up. You can't tell me anything else in that movie mattered. Maybe the pod racing was cool, but that's not even like a legacy thing that continues. You know what I mean?
The Darth Maul thing changed the game. Maul. It changed everything. Yeah,
Darth Maul was the footprint. I think that was one of the most successful things Lucas did in those prequels was establish this double lightsaber Darth Maul, Sith character, man.
I know, isn't that funny? Like,
right?
But that's the other thing too. Like, people don't give George Lucas his credit, but like, dude has some cool ideas, or at least was able to recognize the cool ideas that the people on his team had, right?
Yes.
And to like incorporate it, because like, when you're looking at Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're like, man, that's so cool. And all the cool stuff about Obi-Wan Kenobi are the classic Star Wars things. It's like, oh, when he finally kicks up his lightsaber in like a full fight, you're like, oh yeah, this is so cool. And then when it finally plays like the Force theme at the end of the show, you're like, yeah, this is,
it's perfect, isn't it, Tex? Because like specifically because it's Obi-Wan and it's Ewan McGregor again, playing Obi-Wan, and we got so connected and tied to Obi-Wan being Ewan McGregor that this is just everything we needed. We mentioned it before in our episode 1 through 4 preview that this was the story that Obi-Wan and the actor Ewan McGregor needed in order to kind of move on with their lives, right? And it was quite special. It was definitely quite special. Let's get into it, Tex. We spoke about episodes 1 through 4, right?
Yes.
And we left off right as Reva was hunting them down after he escaped the first fight with Darth Vader, right?
Yes. And full spoilers from here on out. If you haven't finished Obi-Wan Kenobi or haven't jumped in, go check it out. Pause this episode, come back, check us out. But like, so jumping in from there, I kind of wish the story from like the first 2 episodes, or like the story of the last 2 episodes, and maybe like the first 2 were kind of pushed together.
Yeah.
Maybe tightened up, to be like a movie. Because like the Reva thing is great, and I love Reva's story. But then like I'm thinking about it, and we had that whole breaking into Darth Vader's tower thing, and I'm like, I don't know if we needed those side quests, because like when we finally get to the meat of it with these final 2 episodes, I'm like, this is what I've been wanting. I've been wanting like episode 5 where you finally get like the old, like the Anakin flashbacks.
You know what it is though, Tex? You know what it is? I agree with you, but we needed to know the relationship between him and Leia. We needed to know why Leia sent R2-D2, right, with a message, for Obi-Wan that he's, our only hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it's worth it for that, but also,
Yeah, but listen, like they had to get her back, right? He was just, you know what?
Right.
They got Leia later, Leia. I love you. I'll see you later. Good luck.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Let's go back to Anakin over here.
Yeah, like that's what I was thinking too. I was like, oh, maybe they were gonna pick her up like mid-show, and then it was gonna focus on Obi-Wan and Anakin. I don't know. I think that's the thing. These are just pet peeves and nitpicks that are popping out after I'm thinking about it. Because like, no, I'll be 100% honest. Like I watched it, I was like, oh, this is the best thing. It's my like straight up, it's my favorite Star Wars thing. And like for
oh yeah, 100%.
Even more so than Mando season 1, because Mando season 1 was great, but like this is like
it's Obi-Wan, bro.
Yeah, this is Star Wars, dude. Like this this is
Yeah,
our this is our part 3.5. You know, this is our like
yeah,
right in the middle. Yeah.
and to all that, like the Obi-Wan needed the journey, right? Remember, like when we first saw him in episode 1, the dude hasn't used his powers in who knows how long, right?
Right.
So we needed to see him kind of get his groove back, like Stella when she went to Jamaica, right? So him going through the motions, going into Vader's thing. By the way, he's a great swimmer.
Yeah.
We see that in their prequels as well. Obi-Wan's a great swimmer.
Yeah.
So I think I wanted to see that from him too. As a big fan of Star Wars, I wanted to see him regain his confidence back. You know, it sucks he didn't have a montage. You know, he needed a montage.
Yeah, like a training
but
montage. Yeah.
this was, I guess, the way to do it. I understand what you're saying because that is so like far off the trajectory of where we ended up. You know, it was such a side thing that it, like in location and in story. You know, that it is questionable at the end, but I think it was also just a little bit of fan service in there too. You know what I mean? Because you know I never knew Vader to like, you know, bring people back to his fortress and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I didn't know the Inquisitors came from there. You can kill me if you want, you fans out there, because I wasn't aware the Inquisitors were based out of his fortress. I always thought Vader's Fortress of Solitude was like his Fortress of Solitude, where he went, he meditated, and then he went out and did dark side shit, right?
Yeah, my thing with that though is like, you know, like I said, for all I praise it and stuff like that, it's, you know, this is the only time to get it out now, right? It's like this is it. Like
this is it,
so my thing is I wish like we had more of the Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like I think because we get so much of that in 5 and 6, like they're so much better than everything else in the show because it's like we finally get that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and like I do also like see Obi-Wan, like I'm in for the same reason. I want to see Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan like get back to Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, but at the same time, it's like, you know, the best parts of the show are when he gets to open up about like how much he's actually going through and
about
like
Anakin and stuff, right?
Yeah, and like I wish we would have got more of that. Like that's the thing. It's like I feel like if this were like a tighter movie project, you know, like a 2.5 hour, you know, Disney Plus movie thing with the Obi-Wan and Vader and Anakin stuff, with the Reva plot. You can even have the Princess Leia, you can have the Luke and Leia story in there too, but like just a much tighter escort mission movie. And like
to kind of to counter your you know, the way you wanted to go, I think maybe I get it, but it kind of needed to have that other stuff in it, because if you think about it, right, Obi-Wan has no idea Anakin's alive. He thought this dude, he left him for dead. Legit, he left him for dead on what was that planet called? I forgot the land planet, but he left him for dead, right? At the end of episode 3. Cut off his leg, cut off his arms, burnt him like crisp. I hate you, and all that stuff, right? So for all he knew, Darth Vader is just some other crazy Sith guy. So for the longest time, you had that there. You needed something to kind of reignite that kind of that storyline. I think this is why you had to throw in the Reva and the Leia thing, because I think that was a catalyst to get Anakin back together with Obi-Wan in 5 and 6. You know, like we don't get to that point if we don't get this other stuff. You know what I mean? Because there would have been no reason for Obi-Wan to come out of hiding. There would have been no reason for him to do anything Jedi. You know what I mean? Because he wanted to just, you know, stay quiet and keep a very low profile. If it wasn't for Reva's storyline, if it wasn't for Senator Organa calling him, you know, for help, Obi-Wan figuring out about Darth and Anakin being one, and, you know, getting to that point that we loved in 5 and 6, it would have been hard to do that. I think you would have had to come out with another kind of story to kind of get that ball rolling, since Obi has wanted to, like I said, he's wanted to just be on the down low for a long time now. Yeah.
Right.
So I think we needed all that stuff to get to where we wanted to. That being said, I wish we had more of that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I think that's I think
We got
we do ultimately agree that, like,
yes, we needed more of that. We got I insert that we needed all that fluff there, right? But I do agree wholeheartedly that we needed more of Anakin and Obi-Wan when it came to it. If we got at least a seventh episode, right? Let's say we like the climax was in episode 7. If we got another episode of them just going back and forth, bro, like while other shit's going on, you can edit the other stuff going on, but have them going back and forth, bro, because you're right. Like there's this moment at the end that we get that we've wanted for a long time, but I think they had so much more they could have juiced out of that, you know.
That's what I mean. It's the whole, like, when we get to the final battle between like Obi-Wan and Vader, it's like it's super emotional and it's like it's fulfilling. It's like, yeah, like that's the thing too. It's, I know people like, yeah, we all trashed Hayden Christensen. I'm not gonna lie, I was in there too. I was trashing him. You know what I mean?
When I'm dead, just throw me in the trash.
Like
that was Darth Vader legit.
I get it, but at the same time, it's, you know, it's for the same respect we paid at Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. For, you know, for all intents and purposes, Hayden Christensen is a big icon in the Star Wars universe. You know, regardless of how you feel about his delivery, his performance, or whatever, he's still Anakin Skywalker, and there's nothing any of us could do to take that away. You know, so like seeing these two people come back and like get to play around with Star Wars again, it's one of those things where it's like I think that's why I'm like, I wish it was more fulfilling, because I'm like, I wish we just had a little bit more that they could play around with, because it's like we don't, like, you know, so it's Anakin in the Vader suit, like it's actually Christensen in the Vader suit the whole time, so it's like, you know,
there is a stunt double there as well, so we don't know exactly how much of the work he's doing. I know that Hayden did show some like a duel, like I think it was their last duel. I think that's all him.
Yeah, so the thing too is that they have that Edward James almost James Earl Jones. So they have that. I know that'd be a way different kind of voice, right?
So they have all right.
they have that that artificial intelligence voice for Jones. For James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones.
Yeah, I had to keep reminding
Mufasa.
myself. Yeah, so it's like. So it's Hayden Christensen saying the lines, but it's coming out in the Vader voice. So like, good on that. Like it's like, that's the thing. It's I'm glad that, you know, McGregor. Point I'm trying to make is McGregor and Christensen the whole time, like, even though years after, they're so still happy to be in Star Wars. It's so refreshing too, because like, we saw what happened to the people in the new trilogy, how they ended up hating the experience so much. They're like, I never want to, like, none of the big three.
Oscar trash Star Wars fans, man.
Yeah, like, where it's like they were burned on it so bad, and by the people. Yeah,
Star Wars, just like horror, has one of the most toxic fan bases. Like, ever.
It's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for the cast of the new ones. It doesn't help that the movies weren't that great, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't help that the third movie tried to undo everything people complained about. You know?
And it doesn't help that the third movie actually gave us Ben Solo, which is like, hey, you could have done a Ben Solo movie all along. This was awesome.
You could have done a Ben Solo trilogy, right?
Like, dude, like, he was freaking great, man.
It was right there. But no, the point I'm trying to make here is that, like, despite all of that, these two actors are like, you know, yeah, we did movies that were so and so, but they had a good time. And so, like, it's good seeing that energy back. You know, it's like they're obviously having a good time doing this.
No,
like
listen, like, absolutely.
That final confrontation, dude. It's like, they're the energy they have with each other. And
I love the scenes where his helmet's just kind of cracked up already, and you get the half artificial voice with the real voice and everything, and I was like, oh, with a tear in my eye, the greatest moment in my life.
And then, that's what I'm saying, dude.
But yeah, also to your point from earlier, Tex, these guys enjoy it as well because the fans have embraced the characters and the actors playing them. It took time. You know what I mean? I think Obi-Wan was almost immediately liked. I think out of everyone of the first trilogy, I think Obi-Wan was the only one that can say that no one really had an issue with him and Yoda,
Yeah.
But over time, for instance, Hayden Christensen's performance was kind of, it was poo-pooed at first, but then over time, like, it's like, hey, wait a minute, have you seen what he did in episode 3? And then we had to kind of rewatch it again as fans, right?
Yeah.
I had to rewatch it again as a fan, and then I rewatched the whole original, trilogy as a fan. I'm sorry, the prequel, episodes 1, 2, and 3, and I was like, reassessing it with a critical eye, as an adult. Part 2 is still garbage, right?
Yeah,
Part 2
right.
legit is
Somebody throw me in the trash.
that's part 2, but part 3, I had to eat so much crow that I was like, I can't let anybody see this, but I just ate a whole, crow pie, because episode 3, I poo-pooed the shit out of that thing for a long time. And it's good. It's good. Christensen does a really, really good job with everything he's given. It's just that there's so much going on with the clone stuff, that like a lot of that stuff gets lost in the mix,
Yeah, it's like you can't, like, it's like, how much do you fault him for bad material? It's like it's not like he's in charge of the script, he's saying, you know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah, but though his performance got better in episode 3. In episode 2, he wasn't really, he wasn't good.
There was nothing for him to do. Like,
this is also true.
That's the thing. It's like, you can't. It's like, how much do you hold against him for being an Anakin in 2 movies? In 2 movies, he had to do the weight of 3 different movies. You know what I mean? It's not like we met Mark Hamill in part 4 as a kid. It wasn't kid Luke who then became adult Luke in part 2, and then Jedi Luke in part 3. Like, no, we met kid Anakin first, and then it wasn't until teen Anakin came in part 2 that he came in.
Yeah,
and then from there he had to become Vader in 1 movie. So it's like,
this is true. I guess I'm still kind of judging him a little harshly, because episodes 1, 2, and 3. It's
no, that's what I mean. Like, it's not, you're all like, I'm gonna say that straight out too. You're also not judging too harshly, because that's the thing. Like, the reality is he does have a cadence that's tough to get used to. It's also like, the movies have bad scripts, so it's like, you can't. But then at the same time, it's clear with Kenobi, you give him the material, you give the 2 of them time to like actually be in the same place at the same time.
But also, Tex, I think too, what I have to put out there as well, before we wrap up this whole Star Wars stuff, until we speak about it again at some point.
Probably like in a month or whenever the next Star Wars thing comes out. Who even knows, right?
Yeah, I know. It was very cool for him to kind of reprise his role, to actually do his thing. But it's also like, in terms of, you brought it up, like, he didn't have much to work with, right?
Right.
The early trilogies were mostly based on political stuff and merchandising. You know what I mean? Like Lucas wanted to really put out the droid stuff. You can tell.
Right.
Tons of merch around.
Yeah,
that time,
just Jar Jar Binks. I mean, come on, like that tells you everything you need to know.
Saturated completely. And the story fell by the wayside. And also, honestly, it was a little too complicated for everyone. Like, they legit got into like a political debate.
Yeah, it was too much of the Senate stuff. Yeah, that no one cared about at the end of the day.
Yeah, and like, so like you said, we can't really judge him that harshly because the story wasn't there anymore. And when the story really got chunkier was when he really shined, right?
Yes.
So bringing him back, having them reprise their roles, especially seeing them both in that one flashback scene, right before when he was still a Padawan with that hair. That was awesome.
We could have had, like, I wish we got another one of those. You know what I mean? It's like, why wasn't that Like, why was it that? I think that was my thing. It's why hold that back till episode 5? So like the literal next episode we talked about after we broke off the last time. You know what I mean? So it's like you should like that could have been through the whole series. You know what I mean? We could have had like whole little flashbacks like that.
I don't know why they wanted. I don't know why they didn't want to pull that trigger. I think maybe. I don't know, man.
Because
they just got like, really scared to tell that story, you know?
Yeah. There you go, Arturo. I think you figured it out because it's like, were they, you know, if they committed to a full Obi-Wan and Anakin story, it's like, you know, what do you get? Like,
because you could still have that, like, honestly, like, all right, so the Reva storyline was dope. I really like Reva. Like, you could have still had her do the same exact thing she's doing while still focusing. Like, once you establish that these Inquisitors are working for Vader, right? You get to the once you establish that Vader is the one hunting down Obi-Wan, right? And Reva is the one who specifically also has this thing for Vader and Obi-Wan. Like, you could still have that there, right? And then once you finally, I think it was mid episode 2 is when you really get that Vader kind of obsession with Obi-Wan thing. Dude, that could have driven this thing for hours.
It could have been the whole show.
For hours, because you saw how Vader was kind of reckless, right? Like, he got sunned by Palpatine at one point at the end, right? He's like, are you sure this is not affecting your decision? Even the Grand Inquisitor, Baldy Man, he gave him the greatest side eye ever when he was like, you know, we should go again, and take care of this this ring that's, you know, supporting the Jedi. And Vader's like, nah, we're good. You can let them live.
And the
Let's go get Obi-Wan.
Yeah, the whole thing with like the whole are you sure you want to do all that for a Jedi? And he's like, he's not no ordinary Jedi and stuff like that. So you're so right. It's stuff like that. If they would have played with that more, like I said, you could have, like, same thing I was saying in the beginning too. You could have had the Reva stuff in there, like you said. You could have had Luke and Leia still in this, but if you would have harnessed more of that Obi-Wan and Anakin connection that we really get in those last 2 episodes, that it's like, there you go, it would have been perfect. Like, right now, it's a great Star Wars story. I had a good time, you know what I mean? Like, to me, this makes a new trilogy with part 3 and 4, you know, and I'm like, you know, and that final fight and that whole, like, Obi-Wan, like, he's like, well, I tried to kill you before, this is what happened. And now, people were mad about that, Arturo. People were upset that, like, Obi-Wan kept Vader alive. And, like, first of all, it's of course, right? Like, it's the of course thing that he has to keep him alive for part 4.
No, but it's Obi-Wan.
But it makes so much sense, dude, right? Because
Obi-Wan's the Jedi. He wouldn't. Listen, when have you seen Obi-Wan kill somebody, especially when he knows they're defeated already?
Yeah, like Anakin's legs and like his legs were cut off and stuff like that before, and he still technically left him alive. Like, Obi-Wan still technically left him alive in part 3. So
yeah,
it's
like he's never one to put a final blow in it if you're not a droid. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's a trash take from a lot of fans out there. I don't understand that. I'm like, it's and because of the connection. You see, this is probably why we needed a little bit more, right? To make fans understand, even the ones that should know already, to make fans understand the deep connection that the master has with his Padawan, right? Like, you know, he's not this new version of Luke that we get, that all of a sudden wants to strike down Ben Solo because he's having a bad dream, right? It's this older Jedi, this Jedi of the old guard, you can say,
right?
With the morals of, like, just of right and wrong and what everything should be, you know.
Yes.
And this is how they hunted the Jedis, because they knew, like, listen, he's not gonna let these people die, you know, because he's Obi-Wan. So you think he's really gonna kill Anakin after he finds out that he's Vader, and then he sees his burnt face, and then he hears that speech that Anakin says, like, no, like, I'm the one who killed off Anakin Skywalker. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, he really is lost, dude. He's lost. Because Obi-Wan is always like, let's let's try and save you. You know what I mean? But then
Yeah.
when he sees that and he hears that, he's like, yo, you know what? Yeah, I can't save you, dude.
Yeah,
You know, like we're done. Goodbye.
Fighting him gets him nowhere, and that explains in part 4 why he just gives. Like, I remember.
Yes, I was just about to get there too.
Yes,
great job.
Yes, that Obi-Wan just gives up without a fight, but now we understand it, right? Where it's like,
because the obsession of Vader, having him in front of him, Vader was gonna do anything he can to strike him down, no matter what. Especially in that corridor we get when they're on the Star Destroyer, right?
Yes.
So like this is why I say that those little things, that all those little fluff developments are necessary, because we find out certain things as to A New Hope. We find out how Leia knows of Obi-Wan and why she trusts him with everything right now. You know what I mean? We find out about why all of a sudden Obi-Wan just gave up, you know, to become a Force ghost.
Yes.
We get it now, and that's what we needed from these Star Wars shows, right? To kind of give us a little bit of more depth in between the lines, right?
Yeah, because, you know, to be 100% honest, it is unnecessary, because the end of part 3 is the perfect lead into part 4. You know, Obi-Wan leaves baby Luke on Tatooine, you know, then he goes off on his way, and then, you know, years later we get Tatooine Luke.
Yeah.
But like you said, this is unnecessary, but like you said, it adds those little extra bits that make it a more full experience, you know, because now that nitpick of why did Obi-Wan just straight up give up in the middle, like without really fighting, now it's got an explanation behind it. And
because also Obi-Wan beat him. So Obi-Wan's like, wait a minute, I can stay here fighting back and forth with this guy. We know he's not gonna stop. I know I can beat this dude. He knows I can beat him. This
Obi-Wan's
is not
beat
leading
him twice.
anywhere.
He's beat him twice.
Exactly. He was like, yo, this is not going to lead us anywhere. I need you guys to get off this ship. You know what I mean? Like, the only way is to, you know what? Like, I've been here a hot minute. I got you guys to where I need to get you guys. I'll see you guys as a ghost. So
yeah, he's like, I'll see you later.
Listen,
that
explanation just like blows your mind after a while. And you're like, damn. And also the explanation as to why Leia would name her kid Ben, right?
Yes.
You know, like, you're like, holy crap, you know, these little things. It's that Star Wars building is a big universe, man. This is like, this goes back to my MCU talk, right? That Marvel does a great job of building that universe, of filling in those lines, right? A universe is big. It has space. It has a terrestrial stuff. It has, you know, street level stuff. It's the same thing for Star Wars, right? Like, we've seen like all these little layers of Star Wars. We've seen the Empire stuff in space. We've seen the terrestrial stuff with let's say with Rogue One and all that stuff. We've seen all the crazy stuff. So, but like, I think now they get it. And I remember I mentioned this before on a previous episode, that Star Wars was going to start focusing on story and building characters instead of having to develop a whole freaking trilogy. Start with one story and take it from there, because you have such an expansive world that you can just tie things in bit by bit like Marvel is doing. So now, that being said, they're under the same big umbrella of Disney. So if Star Wars is smart and Disney is smart, they'd be like, hey, Marvel, you got anybody we can use over here to help us, organize this stuff?
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. But I'm excited because one of the first Star Wars projects to come out in the next year, or not, is it the next year, or one of the first Star Wars movies to come out?
Yeah, I think it's the first movie in a while.
This new era is from Taika Waititi, you know, who helped Marvel direct, you know, a lot of where they are now, you know, including with the Russo brothers and stuff like that. So I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are excited about it. Go check out Obi-Wan on Disney Plus. Go check out Black Phone in theaters now, folks. Go check us out on all the socials. We are on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. You can catch us on Twitch, on YouTube Live, every Thursday at 4:20. You can catch us. You can see our miraculous baby faces over here, and then have fun with us on the pod as well. It drops on the same old day. And thank you so much, folks, for listening. We have 114 of these for you guys out there. Go check us out. Thank you so much to Glenn Murawski for the music. Thank you so much for Delvirus for the artwork, and thank you, folks, for listening. And remember, it's a scary world out there, but we're here to walk you through it.